Welcome to Chat with the Lawyer. I'm your host, Walla Blagay, and today we are honored to have Mr. Reuben Collins here. Mr. Collins was the former Charles County Commissioner and also Vice President of the Commission, and he also runs his own practice in Charles County and Prince George's. And he focuses on nonprofit law, which is something that I know many of us want to know about because nonprofits, many people are starting nonprofits. We ask, how do you start one? What's important? And we have the expert here to discuss it with us today. And also, he is a book author, so he does so much. How do you sleep?
Well, first, I would like to thank you for inviting me. This is an honor for me, and I look forward to the discussion.
Okay. Well, tell us about your political history. Like, you became the commissioner in Charles County, so what'd you do there?
Well, Charles County's history is in terms of black empowerment, is fairly recent. When I was elected, I, along with Dr. Eda Patterson, were the first African Americans to actually be elected to Charles County Board of Commissioners. That was in 2006. Mm-hmm. And in 2010, I was re-elected, so I held that distinction as being the first African American on the countywide level to be re-elected to office. I ran for president in 2014, but I wasn't successful. So I have some time to kind of focus on the law practice and kind of figure out what my next moves are politically.
Now, explain there's been some changes in Charles County when it comes to diversity, right? So from 2006, from before 2006 on. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. The 2010 census designated Charles County as one of three majority minority counties in the state of Maryland, which is tremendous because I grew up in Charles County. I was born in the District of Columbia, but my family moved to Charles County when I was very young, and trust me, the county that we moved to was overwhelmingly Caucasian. It was well over 70% white.
Right.
But within the last 10, 15 years, there's been a tremendous influx of minorities, primarily African Americans, moving from Prince George's County and from the District of Columbia, which makes the county one of the most diverse counties in the entire nation. It's also one of the 20 wealthiest counties in the entire nation. So what was unique about this migration is you had primarily middle and upper middle class black people that were moving to Charles County. And as you know, because Prince George's County is a wealthy African American population, that wealth was being spread to Charles County, which created a tremendous dynamic and shift in the politics in the community and everything else.
Right. Well, talk a little bit about some of the projects that you worked on as commissioner, or some of the things that you walk away and you say, I'm really proud of my work.
Well, I think at the top of the list, I started a summer youth employment program, which is very modest in terms of the initial funding, but up to this point, we've increased the funding every year. I started it 3 years ago, and that's something that I anticipate the commissioners will still continue to work on. My first term, I worked on establishing the county's first minority business enterprise program, which was something that wasn't in place when I was elected. In addition to that, I made affordable housing a priority, and I was instrumental in creating a housing authority in Charles County as well. My last term, what I'm most proud of, is I started a project called the Waldorf Beautification Project. And that, again, is something that hopefully will be ongoing. The focus is on recognizing Waldorf as one of the primary populated areas in Charles County, but also to get our community to focus more on recognizing, a clean Waldorf means a clean Charles County. And so the focal point of that whole project is just building pride. But during the course of my term, I certainly have done as much as I could to create transparency in terms of interacting with the citizens. I was the first and only commissioner to hold monthly town hall meetings. I did that for the duration of time that I was in office. So I think that kind of distinguished me from a lot of my colleagues.
Interesting. Wow. And how do you explain the business enterprise if somebody wants to start a business in Charles County? Is that something that they go through?
Absolutely. If you go through the Charles County Economic Development Department, you'll be able to find information that can assist you if you're a small or developing business. If you're considering starting a business, they can assist you. The county actually has a revolving loan fund that can assist small businesses for if you're seeking startup capital, and if you can go through the process, which is nowhere near as rigorous as going to a bank.
Right.
It provides very, very critical funding for small business owners. I would encourage anyone that has any interest in that to go on Charles County's website and go to the economic development, and you'll find information on business development.
Interesting. Well, it sounds like you'll be missed. Well, let's get into the nonprofit issues. Now, I want to start a nonprofit to assist students in Prince George's County. I want to do. So how do I begin? Walk me through the process.
Well, what I would suggest you do first off is be clear on your actual goals for your organization. One of the most important elements for the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, in looking at any application is whether the purposes are for charitable reasons and seeking charitable outcomes. So if you can articulate a vision where it's clearly in the spirit of providing services and providing something at the end of the day has a direct impact on the community from that vantage point, then you're right on point. If you haven't already, at the top of the list, you would need to get a EIN number, which is basically...
How do you do that?
It's a tax ID number. So much of this process is so simple now. You can literally go online. You can literally Google and put EIN PIN number, and the information will pop up for you. You can actually do the application online.
At what website?
It's the IRS Internal Revenue Service.
So IRS.gov?
Right.
Okay.
But if you go on, and you know what you want the name of the company to be, and it'll let you know if someone else shares that number. Okay. But you'll literally get your tax ID online, and generally speaking, within 25 minutes, you'll have an EIN number. Right. The follow-up to that is actually incorporated. Right. And so you would need, depending on which jurisdiction you live in, if you live in the state of Maryland, for example, you would have to go and file with the State Department of Assessment and Taxation. Okay. That is the part of Maryland government that actually files and maintains the listing of all organizations and corporations, etc., in the state of Maryland. What you would file with the SDAT is called your Articles of Incorporation.
Can you go over that?
And your articles, like most organizations, it's really, for the most part, like a primary organizational document. Right. It explains it speaks in general terms about your purpose, and what's clearly articulated in your Articles of Incorporation is a statement that you are a tax-exempt organization. Right. Because if it doesn't have that language in it, then you would be filing the wrong kind of document. And right. Lawyers will help you with that. And
so that's where you come in. Do you usually draft those for your?
You definitely draft those, but you know, and to be fair, the state of Maryland has made it very simplistic, so you don't even need a lawyer, but I would obviously encourage someone to have a lawyer, but you don't need a lawyer because you can go online, you can go to the SDAT website, and they actually have the forms.
Right.
So they have the forms for articles of incorporation, all the forms that you would need to file. So I mean, it's on the one hand, I really don't want people to know that, but at the same time, that's providing a tremendous service, and it makes the process a lot simpler than I think people really think it is. You know?
Yeah.
So once you file that, and the cost of filing, is generally about $190. When you add it all up, you can fax in your articles. What I encourage people to do is to physically go to Baltimore, to the SDAT office, because then you'll have all your filing papers and everything the same day.
Now, can I ask you one question? Now, when you file that paperwork, do you need to have a board set?
That's a very good question. Yeah, you would, because part of the documentation also lists, who's your president, vice president, and if you have a board of directors, you would list the board of directors. And another key with that document is you'll need to determine someone as, your
resident agent. There you
go. Yes, resident agent.
Yeah.
I was going to say personal representative. Yeah, your resident agent, and that can be. In many instances, attorneys that file these actually list themselves as your resident agent, but it can be practically anyone, as long as they're over 18, and they're a state resident.
Right. Now, can we ask now for board members, by law, is there a requirement of how many board members you need to have?
Technically, the number, surprisingly, is really what you have to have is at least 2 people listed, but I always encourage people to try to develop a complete board, with the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. I would always encourage that, and of course, you can have a larger board, but I mean, technically, you only need 2 people, to actually file. So, as a corporation, and as a nonprofit.
Okay, but you recommend 4.
Right.
Okay, and do you have advice on what type of people should be serving on the board?
Absolutely, and I think that really would be a call of you who is actually creator of the organization, because again, it would have to be consistent with whatever your goals are.
Right.
So you mentioned an educational organization. I would suggest you try to have at least 1 or 2 educators to advise you. But I think one of the most critical things that I don't think people think enough about is people that can actually help you raise funds, that actually have the ability, whether as grant writers or simply they're just people that know a lot of people, and they know how to sell tickets. They know how to raise funds for your organization. So you want a balance like that, and but you want people that are going to actually work for you. That's all it is too. Because I think a lot of times people people on boards because they got a title and they think, well, yeah, that it makes it look good for us. But a lot of times those people, they're so spent in their time, they're not really able to help your organization. So I think balancing it with individuals that have an expertise in that area with people that have a very strong ability to raise money. I think those are probably the 2 things.
Well, we are going to take a break, and we're going to come back and really dig more deeply into the nonprofit issues. So please stay with us.
Protect your unborn baby from CMV, a crippling birth defect virus. CMV disables more children each year than Down syndrome or fetal alcohol syndrome. Learn more at cmvfoundation.org.
Welcome back to Chat with the Lawyer, and I'm here with Mr. Reuben Collins, who has been talking with us about issues of nonprofits, which is really important to us, so we want to get right back into it. So when we were talking before, you mentioned that you filed it with the state, with SDAP, and then what happens after that?
That's where the actual grind begins.
Okay.
Because everything else, that process is relatively easy.
Okay.
But the next phase is actually beginning the process of completing the IRS Form 1023.
1023. Now tell us about 1023.
The IRS 1023 form is approximately a 30-plus page document that asks every conceivable question that you can imagine on what you perceive this organization to be, and the whole point of these questions are to ensure, again, that you're doing this for charitable purposes. The document will ask you to actually list board members. It'll ask, as part of the application, to attach your certified articles of incorporation. That's why that's like the first thing you do, because you're going to need that.
Because you need the copy.
You don't have to, but it also suggests that you submit your all of your operating documents, if you've done bylaws, things of this nature.
Now, can you talk about bylaws? Is that something you work with?
Absolutely. Not that many organizations actually ask you to draft them because there's so many examples, but
right, especially in Google these days.
Right. But what your bylaws are is essentially like your operating document.
Right.
It creates the rules for your organization, and so those are the rules that your board abides by.
Right.
And so if there's any disputes, you have in place this document.
Right.
That describes the way the organization operates, etc. So that would be included in the 1023, but it will want to determine, your location of operation. It's going to ask you several questions about how you intend on raising money. It's going to ask you questions about whether there are potential conflicts that exist with your organization and another organization that might be a for-profit, because what they're looking at with that is if, you're trying to, essentially like double dip or, use this nonprofit as a front for something that you're intending to do to make money for yourself.
Right.
So it gets very detailed in its questioning. And in addition, you're required to submit a 3-year projected budget for your organization in the document. So it requires time to actually review and think through, okay, what do I want to submit? Because trust me, if things don't add up, it's going to make the application process more difficult for you, because they're going to ask questions about anything that raises any red flags in the mind, because we're talking about the IRS. So trust me, they're going to scrutinize you, right? So that document. My general practice is to allow my client to attempt to fill out the application, because you can you can do this online.
Right.
If you Google 1023, you can pull up the documents from the IRS website, and you can literally work on the document online. So I encourage people to take a stab at it, see what you can do, and then allow me to kind of review it, because I've made this a part of my practice for 15 years now.
Wow.
And so I'm pretty comfortable with the type of language I think the IRS needs and wants to hear. You have to be responsive to every question, but at the same time, you don't want to talk your way into creating additional questions for them to ask you.
Right.
And so the key is to be responsive, but at the same time, don't feel like you have to fully describe because all it does is raise additional questions. Okay, well, you raised this, well, why? Well, did you consider this? And so so just be responsive, and I think that you'll be fine.
Okay.
The application, like I said, is about 30 pages or so. There's also a fee, and this is, I think, what scares a lot of people. I don't think you're prepared that the actual fee for filing a 1023 is $850 if you anticipate that your organization, its annual operating budget will exceed $10,000 a year.
Right.
If it's under that, the filing fee is half of that amount.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. So it's
But
like
still,
100.
right, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, that is. And for the budgeting, do they need an accountant?
That's a great question, absolutely. I mean, I am not a tax lawyer, and whenever tax issues arise, I always encourage people, you know, if you don't have a CPA and you're starting an organization, you need to get one.
Right.
Because, I mean, I think lawyers are important people, but trust me, a CPA is more important than anything when you're operating a business. So I strongly encourage anyone, when you're going, so you'll understand the code. You know, I can develop the documents for you, but but in terms of tax consequences and that kind of thing, that's not my area of expertise.
Interesting. So after you file the form, what happens? Are you official?
The process, and it actually slowed down last year, because if you recall, there was a big deal in Congress with
Tea Party.
the Tea Party issue with the nonprofits, and so it slowed down the entire process. So there was a serious backlog. And my understanding is it's starting to clear up a little. So what is generally a process that should not take you more than 9 weeks, it kind of went into several months before you would receive the approval. And you would submit your application with fee, expect within 2 to 3 weeks a letter back from the IRS telling you that we received your letter. And in that letter, there will be a number that will eventually become your tax ID number in that letter. It's like a tracking letter to let you know, okay, you're in the process now, and it'll also give you the name of the agent that is assigned to your file. Right. And so that'll be your contact person. Okay. Now, I, as the lawyer, as part of the filing, I also submit, it's a power of attorney form, a form 2850, which is a power of attorney form. So that allows me, in addition to anyone that's on the actual application, to talk directly to the IRS about any questions about the application process. So once you receive that letter back, it generally takes, if you don't foresee any questions from the agent about anything, normally within, like I said, within 90 days, you should receive your determination letter, and that's that's like the holy grail. When you get the determination letter with that language saying that that you are a non-profit organization, and it has your tax ID number, and that makes you official. That's when you're in it.
So that means if they come to you,
right,
then they'll get theirs in 90 days.
That's right. That's right. But that is
listen in.
But that is a very important document, and it's a powerful document. I think that's why it costs so much to file, to get tax exempt status. Right. And that is the key measurement of being a true nonprofit. Right. Having that ability, so when people make donations, when people buy tickets to your fundraisers, those donations can be exempt, from general taxation. Right. Not absolute, but certainly, there's some exemptions. So there's a benefit in having, that type of status.
That's nice. Well, now why don't we go into what if it's denied? What happens?
If it's denied, and I can tell you, I've done this, like I told you, 15 years. I've probably, within that time, I've done at least 30 to 35 applications. Now, I can only recall one incident where it was denied.
Okay, so it's usually approved.
And generally, it's not approved, it is something that's fishy.
Okay.
And that one incident, I found that in hindsight, there was some stuff that was not totally kosher with, the application, and and so I found out after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And but at worst, they may ask you additional questions.
So what are the common problems that nonprofits come to you not only to get registered, but probably for other legal issues? So what are some of the things that you would advise those for nonprofits to be aware of?
Use, for example, and this has been the way that I've actually helped a couple of nonprofits to become, to get their tax exempt status. I can recall 2 incidents where I was invited to a fundraiser, and it was for a nonprofit, great cause, scholarship fund. Everything's great about it, and so when I go to make my donation, I'm a lawyer, so I'm automatically reading the language, and I'm looking, and I'm not seeing the buzzwords. I'm not seeing, so-and-so is a tax-exempt organization under 501c3, blah, blah, blah. So that always raises the red flag to me, because then I start asking, well, okay, can we get, some type of, a receipt or something so we can submit this for our taxes? And in 2 instances, that's when I realized that people were operating with great intentions, no intention to do anything wrong, but they weren't really tax-exempt organizations because they didn't complete the 1023, they didn't do all of that. And so I actually worked with them, to correct that, So that would be the first thing. One, make sure that you are, a tax-exempt organization under 501c3, which means you have a determination letter and an actual tax ID number in place.
Okay. And there's any other issues that people have come to?
I guess the other one would be in terms of filing and filing on time. All of your paperwork, etc. Because even though you're a tax-exempt organization, you still have to file your taxes.
Every year.
And that's when I generally refer them to a CPA.
Interesting. Well, now you're going to have to tell everyone, look at the camera and tell everyone how to contact you. Because if they want to start their nonprofit, they need to know how they can contact you. You
can contact me at RB Collins Law LLC. My website is www.dcmdlawyers.com. Again, that's dcmdlawyers.com. My phone number is 301-870-4087. And I certainly would love to work with any individuals that have a vision of creating a nonprofit organization. Well, we thank you, Mr. Collins, for coming on the show. We're sure that many viewers are going to contact you and let you know any help that they may need in the nonprofit area. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Well, if you want to contact us at chatwiththelawyer@gmail.com, or you can go to the website at www.wallablegay.com. And please stay tuned and watch our next show. Thank you.